Možete li nam predstaviti zakonodavni i institucionalni okvir za zadovoljavanje potreba osoba sa invaliditetom u Irskoj?
In terms of Ireland and relevant legislation, it's mainly guided at local level by the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. However, recent legislation has been quite progressive in changing the disability landscape for persons with disabilities, particularly in the area of rehabilitative training, vocational training and work and employment programs. The main legislation would have been the Disability Act 2000, which set forward a strategy, a very progressive strategy, an inclusive strategy, which incorporated change in work practices, change in sheltered work practices, and more importantly, change practices in open employment. For example, in sheltered work activities, there is no longer just a single activity. Sheltered work practices now incorporate social and personal development. They incorporate occupational activities, certainly, but also a range of like work opportunities for people with disabilities. Labour market opportunities in Ireland currently are very depressed for obvious reasons, the global economic downturn, but also because we have ranging on 500,000 people unemployed. 293,000 of these are people with disabilities. And there is only a 26% participation rate of people with disabilities in the workplace. So you can see there are growing and emerging difficulties in terms of not only having rights for persons with disabilities, but putting these rights into effect. Currently in Ireland, sheltered work programs have gone through a considerable change. In a sense that a re-evaluation has done of activities, and it discovered that there was a lot of like work situations, like work, community work, supported work, and minimum wage legislation has dictated that persons with disabilities in Ireland who are in like work situations must be paid the minimum wage. Consequently, and with the effects and the implications of the recession, the experience for people with disabilities in Ireland is quite restrictive in terms of like work situations, and of course open employment is relatively rare at the moment.
Tko su ključni sudionici u procesu zaštitnog zapošljavanja osoba s invaliditetom u Irskoj i tko osigurava sredstva za rad zaštitnih radionica?
Sheltered employment in Ireland is no longer called sheltered employment. It's now called sheltered occupation services, and it's funded in the main through adult day services by the Health Service Executive, which is the government agency under the auspices of the Department of Health and Children. Funding is mainly provided to specialist service providers who provide a range of activities, which are mainly called rehabilitative training, which includes pre-vocational training, social and personal development, and occupation-type activities. The work situation is generally looked after by the National Supported Employment Programme, which comes under the auspices of a government agency called FOSS, which is the National Employment Authority. And this is in the main looks after vocational training, supported employment, and of course open employment. A most recent audit and census of sheltered occupation services in Ireland has reported a new framework for the strategic planning and delivery of services into the future. It's called New Directions. It's based on 3 core values of person-centeredness, quality and active citizenship, and based on 12 personal support programs. There is no mention of sheltered workshops, occupation centres or day centres, but it's all about the move away from the patient to the citizen, from the medical concept to the social concept, and inclusivity and integration. In terms of marketing and promoting of sheltered occupation services, I have some issues of concern in terms of how we visually communicate and promote the whole disability issues. I think one area that we need to pay attention to immediately is the whole area of terminology and language that we use. We tend to use a language which is alien or exclusive or different from the mainstream sector. For example, we tend to use words like special needs. Well, everybody has needs in the workplace, but we don't call them special needs. We call them maybe specific needs. So I think we need to look at that. The whole area of education is quite contentious at the moment as well. Special education versus mainstream or regular education. Is it best practice to expect people to place young people in segregated settings? And how can we expect them to function normally in non-segregated settings? In terms of sheltered work as opposed to open employment, how can we expect young people who are placed in person-centred systems in terms of education, training and employment development programs, and we expect them to transfer our progress onto mainstream education, regular training, open employment, where all the systems are, or where all the services are system-centred. So there's a contradiction in terms that needs to be examined, re-evaluated and put right.